On today's World Insight, Iran in mourning over the deaths of President Ebrahim Raisi and others in a helicopter crash. What's next for the Iranian leadership? What does the transition mean for Iran's stability and foreign policy amid Middle East tensions?
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. Iran's supreme leader has announced 5 days of mourning following the confirmed death of Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi on Monday, whose helicopter crashed in the country's mountainous northwest region on Sunday. Iran has announced 5 days of mourning, and the body of Raisi would be buried on Thursday in the northwestern city of Mashhad. Raisi died amid high tensions between Iran and Israel, marked by an exchange of attacks in April. Chinese President Xi Jinping on Monday sent a message of condolences to Iran. Amid the mourning, the country lost no time holding a presidential election on June the 28th, according to the official news agency IRNA. So who will likely come out on top of the upcoming election? What's next for Iran in dealing with the Middle East tensions and beyond? Let's ask our panelists from both Iran and here in China. We're joined in Tehran, Iran, Professor Mohammad Marandi from the Tehran University. In Beijing, Wang Jin, Associate Professor with Northwest University of China. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. Professor Marandi, this is an important day to honor the president. So what do you make of the latest discussion worldwide about his achievements and also his impact on the Iranian politics?
His impact is obviously enormous. We saw very large funerals yesterday. He had a funeral in Tabriz, the city where the helicopter was approaching when it crashed. It was in the hundreds of thousands. It's online for people to see. Then they took him to the holy city of Qom, another massive funeral, probably above 1 million. And as we speak, people are gathering in Tehran for the main funeral. And so it's obvious that his popularity is enormous and that people are in deep mourning, despite what Western propaganda says. His achievements, I think, with regards to foreign policy are of particular importance. During his presidency, Iran joined the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and it showed Iran's intention to contribute to Asian integration. Iran also joined BRICS because Iran believes that now is the time to create alternatives to Western financial systems so that the global South will be able to trade and do business without Western threats and Western sanctions. Also, he improved ties with neighboring countries in particular. One example, as many of your viewers would know, was the rapprochement with Saudi Arabia, which was done with the help of the Chinese government. So his push towards Asia, the growth of Asia and the integration of Asia, I think as Asia rises, is of particular importance. And I would add his support for the Palestinian people and his opposition as well, foreign minister's opposition to the ongoing genocide in Gaza. These are all key issues, and I think that he is well known for that in Iran.
Well, at the same time, he has been encouraging the nuclear talks with different stakeholders.
Absolutely. I was in Vienna for the nuclear talks. They were very long negotiations, and the different sides reached a final text. Even Joseph Borrell said in a public interview that Iranian demands are reasonable. And at that time, everyone thought that there would be a deal. But then suddenly the Americans pulled back. It was near the midterm elections in the United States, and Biden got cold feet. And since then, uh, the United States has failed to show the political initiative to deal. But Iran, as you pointed out, did those negotiations, and we almost got there.
So, how do you see his relationship with the supreme leader of Iran? What does that mean for his, what you have illustrated as the achievements in foreign relations?
Well, he had a very good relationship with the leader. Usually, presidents have good relations with the leader, but I think his relationship was particularly good. Both of them had similar visions when it came to foreign policy, and both of them have similar visions when it comes to social justice. President Raisi, he traveled extensively in the country. He every year he would go to each province at least once, and he would go from town to town and village to village to the very deprived areas. Uh, so that therefore people of the working class or those who are more disenfranchised, among them, he was very popular. So his intention was to build a stronger social security network for the country. And that, of course, I think is something that of course is definitely something that the leader wanted. So despite the sanctions, he had many successes. The country has been growing for the last 2 years pretty well, over 4%, and then over 6%. So he's had his achievements. The sanctions still have an impact. The situation has not become easy for Iranians, but things have been changing, and Iran's enemies have been, or antagonists have been in a lot of trouble. The United States and the West has isolated itself because of a host of
Right.
issues your viewers know about.
Mr. Wang, both the Chinese president and also the spokesperson of the Chinese Foreign Ministry have sent condolences to the people of Iran about the past of the president of Iran. Now, how is China looking at his role, President Raisi's role, in many of the things that Professor Morandi touched on? Briefly from you.
Yeah, I think China perceived President Raisi as the very reliable partner in the Middle East, and also the very reliable partner for the global affairs. Because we know that during the past, nearly past 3 years after Raisi assumed the power in August 2021, that the bilateral relations witnessed major progress. And also we know that during the past years that China and Iran's bilateral cooperation witnessed some kind of breakthrough. For example, in the last year, that Chinese company involved in the project in the Tehran's airport. So that is a major achievement. Especially, we have to know that it is a situation against the United States sanctions. So that means that the very major bilateral cooperative achievement between the two sides. So this is a tragedy, I mean, for Iranian people, and also our leader and our spokesman's expression also witnessed that our sadness for his passing away. So that is why I think it's a very particular moment between China and Iranian people to further strengthen and enhance our friendship and the cooperation in the future.
I see. Professor Morandi, we have seen over the past 15 years or so, at least 3, including President Raisi, top-level Iranian leaders lost their lives in accidents and in unexpected events. Now, without going into any conspiracy theory or making any conclusions without concrete evidence, what does that mean for the Iranian politics? Of course, the supreme leader is always the most important figure there. With the upcoming election in June, how do you interpret the latest political situation in Iran from where you are?
Well, in recent years, the only major figure who has died in this way is President Raisi. But before, in the 1980s, the president at that time, along with his prime minister, they were assassinated by MEK terrorists that are based in the West as we speak. And after they were murdered in accordance with the Constitution, we had immediate elections, and there was a new president and a new prime minister, and the country continued to run smoothly, even though uh, the United States was supporting Saddam Hussein in a war against Iran. This time around, although we don't know the circumstances yet, there's an investigation going on.
Yeah.
There is evidence that there was a lot of rain and fog, and that the weather conditions weren't good at all. And also that the helicopter was quite old. It wasn't a presidential helicopter, but we
Right.
don't know yet what happened, and we'll have to wait to see investigation results. But this time round, after the demise of the president, we will go through the same constitutional mechanism. In other words, within 40 days right now, we're going to have elections and
Yes.
the new president. And during these 40 days, the first vice president, because the constitution has changed. Before we
Right.
had a prime minister, now we have a first vice president. He will assume the president's role, and then we'll have a new president who will assume authority, and the transition will be smooth as it was.
President Raisi, if you look at his political track record, has been quite a young leader during his early days already, and has been a rising figure in politics. Now, how shall we understand, the track record and the path he took as someone who rise above on the political scene in Iran? And how will that example give us more insight about the Iranian politics?
Well, President Raisi was in the judiciary, and he gradually became known as became famous as a very clean judge and a person who's anti-corruption. And he rose up in the ranks as a result. And then for a period of time, he also took charge of a foundation, and he sort of shifted that foundation's finances to help the poor in his province, which is in the northeast of the country. So he did have an understanding of economics as well, because that foundation had factories and so on. But afterwards, when he became president, uh, I think that that popularity that he gained as a person who fights corruption, along with the understanding, the economic understanding he gained, and through the foundation, that gave him enough credibility among ordinary Iranians to trust him with the presidency. He became a president at a very difficult time, and I think it was for him a sacrifice, because he was popular. He was very popular as the head of the judiciary, and the economy was not good at all. The situation, as you recall, we had the Trump returning the maximum pressure sanctions. The economy was doing very poorly, and so he really gave up. He was willing to give up his popularity, because he thought that he was the best person at that time who could deal with these problems. And he has dealt with these problems quite, I would say, successfully. Although the economic situation continues to be difficult, but we do see the turnaround. So he was an ordinary person who moved up in the ranks. He did volunteer in the war when Saddam Hussein attacked the country. So he was an orphan. His father
Yeah.
passed away when he was 5. So he comes from that sort of background.
Now, how do you, Mr. Wang, looking from outside, what's going on in Iran right now with the unfortunate pass away of President Raisi, both in international affairs and regional issues, and also Iran's interaction with the regional economic powers?
Every president during the past 2 decades, after the Khamenei became the supreme leader, that under his direction, every president, their foreign policies changed a little bit differently, because we know sometimes that the new president came, they hope to change the foreign policies maybe more positively with the Western countries, but some other president hope to be more conservative and more moderate. So these are some kind of differences. There were some kind of changes. But overall situation, I mean, the general situation will maintain stable. And also, I think the relations with Western countries, as well as with the other regional countries, will continue to be positive, given that the willingness of the supreme leader and willingness of Iranian people to maintain the positive ties with the regional and international actors will continue.
Professor Morandi, international and regionally speaking, we see some very different circumstances now compared to, let's just suggest, 10 years ago. For example, the escalation of tension in Gaza, and also Iran's strategic improvement of relations with Saudi Arabia. And now we also see Iran's relations even with Iraq, as latest statement coming out of Iraq regarding condolences of the unfortunate demise of President Raisi. So how do you see the coming president, with the support of the supreme leader, could articulate better Iran's strategy for the region, and also be able to deal with other uncertainties, for example, coming out of the nuclear talks, if there were any, and also the role of the U.S. and Israel?
Iran is growing in power, as we've all seen over the past few decades. Just 2 decades ago, the United States was occupying both Afghanistan and Iraq, and it had surrounded Iran basically from almost all sides. And now today we see that the United States has been expelled from Afghanistan. It's been marginalized in Iraq, and it's due to its own misinformed policies and its own foolish policies. It is intensifying tensions with a host of different countries, such as Russia and China, and among others. And therefore, the United States has really much less energy than before to confront Iran. So the United States has been on the retreat. Iran and its allies have been on the rise. And therefore, I think that it's very clear that the coming years, Iran is in a much stronger position today when facing its antagonists, that many of whom are in Western capitals. With regards to the Palestinian issue, I think the Israeli regime has made extraordinarily foolish, implemented foolish policies. The genocide in Gaza has isolated it across the world, and the people of the region have become extremely angry, and that has unified much of the region. It has brought countries together, even though they are pursuing different policies. But what is the same is the antagonism of the populations and the anger of many influential groups, organizations, and governments in the region. So the Israeli regime, through these policies, has actually helped bring some countries closer together. It has weakened the regime, and the regime, of course, is a part of the Western Bloc. So I foresee further strength and a further rise, a further rise in the fortunes of Iran and its regional allies.
Even talking about the regional countries that Iran has been closely working together, and also the friendship relations with other major economies and powers of the world. Iran certainly is also an important player in that regard. So how do you see Iran's balanced approach toward Russia, toward China, toward regional players? What is this balancing act that Iran sees in its best interest?
I think there is a consensus today that Iran should pursue the development of ties with Asian friends and Asian allies as a priority, and that Iran should no longer wait for the West to change its policies, because the West is becoming increasingly antagonistic towards much of the world and other rising powers, and we don't see any signs of the West behaving reasonably. So that has also reinforced the idea that Iran should look to new partners. And if the West at some point is willing to change its policy, Iran would welcome that. But Iran is not going to wait. So improvement in ties with China, with Russia, with neighboring countries, with BRICS countries, Shanghai Cooperation Organization countries, these will be the priority in the coming years.
Before you go, Professor Morandi, because I understand you are to attend some of the important events related to the commemoration of President Raisi. Professor Morandi, we see that the adoption of RMB by Iran over the past few years, and we have also seen the increasing link of economic interactions between Iran and regional leaders, including China. So how will Iran take advantage of its own resources and its regional strategic importance and work with different economies? Could you also shed some light on that?
Iran is enormously wealthy with natural gas and oil, as everyone knows. It has the second largest gas reserves in the world, and it is strategically located for both the Belt and Road Initiative, but also the North-South corridor between Iran and Russia. And the natural resources in Iran are among the highest in the world when it comes to mines and other assets. So there is huge potential for Iran, and Iran's growing influence across the region and its improved relations with the global South, I think, means that we will be seeing a better future. The economy has been growing pretty well for the past 2 years, and so I think that the new president, having expanded relations with the global South and a gradually improving economy, he will have a lot of tools to work with.
Thank you so much, Mohammad Randi, professor from the Tehran University. Thank you for staying with us. Please continue with your important agenda of the day. Appreciate it, sir. Mr. Wang, we heard a lot of analysis coming from Professor Morandi in Iran. Now, how is China looking at the upcoming election in Iran? And meanwhile, how will China articulating the future cooperation with Iran given the latest circumstances?
I think China will hope to establish the positive ties with any leaders elected by Iranian people based on their own independent choices. So that is why no matter who will be elected in the future as the president of Iran, China will continue to be confident, work closely with Iranian people to push forward the cooperation projects. Because we know that during the past decades, actually, although there were some difficulties emerged from the sanctions of the United States towards Iran, of course, there were some obstacles and difficulties. We have to understand that. But then that the continuations of the cooperation between Iran and China are still there. And also, we know that the confidence between the very positive bilateral ties between the two states are very strong. So that is why no matter who actually will be elected, that would be all the good news for Chinese people, and also that it would be the good news for the Chinese cooperation with Iran. But then the only problem that I think I want to stress is that the maintenance of the stability inside Iran will be the very priority.
About trade and economic ties, Iran has been under U.S. sanction for long, and of course, these sanctions are not only going to Iran but also to the business communities that are dealing and working with Iran, given that Iran is such an important player in natural resources and certainly also a leader of the region where it is, how is China articulating its balance at this point?
The sanctions from the United States towards Iran actually becomes a very important obstacle for the trade between China and Iran. Because we know that some companies, they have to consider the very serious problem faced in front of them once they started the business with Iranian counterparts. And also that there has already some examples of Chinese companies being sanctioned by the United States, given the excuses of have this business connections with Iran. But I think we will find a way out. On the one hand, there is some kind of the bilateral channels has been established, the hope to bypass the United States sanctions and to establish a very direct business channel between Chinese companies and Iranian companies. And on the other hand, I think China also hope to work together with the rest of the world to strengthen the multilateral mechanism to deter or to resist the pressure from the United States.
Now, the SCO summit likely in July, and also the future meeting of the BRICS summits later in the year, both are important multilateral occasions for economies, particularly from the South, to discuss about their security, political, and economic and trade cooperations. Now, Mr. Wang, looking at these future events, and given the latest unexpected tragedy of the demise of President Raisi, what do you see might be the important agenda for these engagements?
The SCO summits, as well as the BRICS summits, on the one hand, will be the very, very important occasion for Iran's new elected president to express their image, to express their confidence towards the future relations between Iran and itself and with the other members of both SCO and the BRICS. So that is why it is a very important occasion. On the other hand, I think it is also the very important opportunity for China to further establish new opportunities and to enhance their existing cooperative projects between Chinese and Iranians.
Wang Jin from Northwest University of China, thank you so much. We also want to express our appreciation to Professor Mohammad Marandi coming from the University of Tehran earlier talked to us. Our condolences to the Iranian people about the pass away of President Raisi in Iran. Thank you so much. And that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to know more, search World Insight. Check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on X and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei on behalf of the team. Thanks for being with us. Bye for now.